The envelope was thick. Not wedding thick. Not ivory and gold calligraphy thick. Invoice thick. Emili Whitemore stood barefoot on the cool tile floor of her Naples, Florida kitchen, the early June humidity already pressing against the sliding glass doors that overlooked the canal behind her house. The ceiling fan spun lazily overhead. Outside, a fishing boat drifted past in the slow green water, and somewhere down the block a lawnmower hummed. She ran her thumb under the seal. She had waited for this invitation for months. Her only son was getting married. She smiled before she even opened it. Then she saw the paperclip. Her smile faded. There were 2 cards inside. The first was the formal invitation. Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Whitmore request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son, Ethan Whitmore. Her breath caught at the name. Ethan. Her baby. The boy who used to chase pelicans on Clearwater Beach. The boy who once cried because he thought thunder was the sky breaking. The second card was smaller. Plain. Cream. No calligraphy. Typed. To ensure our dream wedding vision comes to life, we are asking immediate family members to contribute financially. Your expected contribution, $7,500. Kindly remit payment within 14 days to confirm your seat and meal selection. Her hands went cold. Confirm your seat. As if she were a distant cousin. As if she needed to purchase her place at her own son's wedding. She read it again. $7,500. There was no handwritten note. No love you, Mom. No smiley face. No phone call warning her. Just a bill. Outside, thunder rumbled over the Gulf. And for the first time in her 50 years, Emili Whitemore felt like she didn't know her own child. Naples in the summer feels like a postcard that's sweating. Palm trees bend slightly in the afternoon storms. The sky goes from blinding blue to charcoal in minutes. Retirees in pastel polos stroll through outdoor malls pretending humidity doesn't exist. Golf carts buzz down gated communities. Emili had lived here for 22 years. She moved after her divorce. After the shouting. After the slammed doors. After Ethan turned 12 and started pretending not to hear his father say things no child should hear. She built a life here. Real estate. Long hours. Open houses in linen blouses and heels sinking into manicured lawns. She worked her way up from showing condos to managing waterfront properties worth more than she ever dreamed of. She paid for Ethan's college. She paid for his first apartment in Tampa. She paid for the car he said he needed just until the promotion kicks in. She had always told herself, he's young. He'll find his way. She sat down at her kitchen island and dialed his number. It rang twice. Hey, Mom. His voice was distracted. Background noise. Clinking glasses. Ethan. She tried to keep her voice steady. I just got the invitation. Yeah. Isn't it beautiful? Sophia picked the design. Sophia. Emili swallowed. There was another card inside. A pause. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't a mistake? She asked softly. Mom, listen, weddings are insane right now. Everything's expensive. We're doing this beachfront venue in Sarasota, and Sophia's parents already put in a lot, so we're just asking immediate family to help out. Help out, Emili repeated. It's not a big deal, he said quickly. Everyone's contributing. $7,500 isn't a big deal? Another pause. Well, you've done well. And you always said you wanted my wedding to be special. Her chest tightened. I did, she whispered. I just didn't realize I'd have to buy a ticket. Mom, don't make it weird. Weird. I'm your mother, Ethan. I know that. Then why does this feel like a transaction? Silence. Then his voice hardened slightly. Sophia's family does things differently. This is normal for them. Normal. For them. And if I don't pay? She asked. A longer pause this time. I mean, seating is limited. We're finalizing numbers. The words landed like a slap. Are you saying I won't have a seat at my own son's wedding? I didn't say that. You implied it. He exhaled sharply. Mom, I can't do this right now. We're at dinner. Just think about it, okay? The line went dead. Emily stared at her reflection in the darkened glass door. When had he started sounding like a stranger? 3 days later, she met her friend Carla at a cafe off Fifth Avenue South. The place smelled of espresso and sunscreen. Tourists in flip-flops drifted past the window. Carla leaned across the small marble table. He actually sent you a bill? Emily slid the card across. Carla read it and let out a low whistle. Wow. I feel ridiculous, Emily admitted. Like I'm overreacting. You're not. He said it's normal. Carla raised an eyebrow. For who? The Kardashians? Emily gave a weak laugh. Carla's voice softened. You've done everything for that boy. I didn't keep score. You shouldn't have to. Emily stared at her untouched latte. It's not even about the money. I know. It was about the tone. The expectation. The quiet suggestion that her presence had a price tag. I keep thinking about when he was 8, Emily said. He saved up his allowance to buy me a birthday candle shaped like a number 1. He said I was the number 1 mom. Carla squeezed her hand. What happened? Emily whispered. Carla didn't answer. That evening, a storm rolled over Naples. Rain hammered the roof. Lightning cracked across the sky. Emily sat at her desk in the small home office overlooking the canal. Her laptop glowed in the dim room. She opened her banking app. $7,500 was not impossible. She could transfer it right now. No drama. No conflict. Just wire the money and show up smiling in a silk dress. Pretend none of it hurt. She hovered over the transfer button. Then her phone buzzed. A group message. Sophia had added her. Sophia, hi everyone. Reminder that contributions are due by Friday so we can finalize catering. Can't wait to celebrate together. Ring sparkles. Below that, Ethan had replied with a heart emoji. No private conversation. No acknowledgement of their phone call. Just logistics. Emily closed the banking app. Instead, she opened something else. A folder she hadn't touched in years. Ethan, legal. Inside were documents from the divorce. Custody agreements. And one particular file. She clicked it. Her late father's trust. She had almost forgotten. When her father died, he left a modest inheritance for Ethan, but only under certain conditions. One of them was tied to demonstrated personal responsibility and financial independence. At the time, Ethan was 17. The funds were still in trust. He didn't even remember the details. Emily leaned back slowly. She had never used it as leverage. Never even mentioned it. Because love wasn't supposed to be a bargaining chip. Thunder shook the windows again. Her phone rang. Ethan. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hi, she said calmly. Mom, he began, sounding irritated. Sophia's mom just called me. She said you haven't responded to the contribution request. I received it. So I'm thinking. About what? About what it means. He sighed. It means we're splitting costs. That's it. Does it? She asked quietly. Why are you making this dramatic? She felt something inside her shift. Not anger. Clarity. Ethan, she said evenly, tell me something. If I couldn't afford it, would you still want me there? Silence. Rain pounded harder. Finally, he said, Mom, don't put me in that position. That's not an answer. He hesitated. And in that hesitation, she heard everything. Look, he said quickly, Sophia's family is very image-conscious. This wedding is important. And I'm not? That's not what I meant. But it's what you said. He didn't argue. Her heart cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but like a quiet fracture spreading through glass. Okay, she said softly. Okay, you'll send it? She looked at the trust document glowing on her screen. At the clause. At the amount sitting untouched for years. And suddenly, she realized something. He thought she was just a wallet. He had no idea what she actually controlled. I'll send something, she said. Relief flooded his voice. Great. Thank you, Mom. I knew you'd understand. Understand. Yes, she whispered. You'll understand soon. She ended the call. Outside, the storm began to clear. The sky lightened to a bruised purple. Emily stood and walked to the sliding doors. The canal water rippled under the fading rain. For 50 years, she had chosen peace. Compromise. Silence. But tonight, something was different. She wasn't going to scream. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't even going to argue. She was going to send a gift. One they would never forget. And as lightning flickered faintly over the gulf, Emili Whitemore began drafting an email, not to her son, but to her attorney. The next morning in Naples broke bright and deceptive. Sunlight poured over the canals like nothing had ever happened. The storm had washed the air clean, leaving behind that sharp, salty scent that drifts in from the Gulf after heavy rain. Snowbirds were long gone for the season, but year-round residents were already out power-walking in neon sneakers, waving to neighbors as sprinklers clicked across manicured lawns. Inside her waterfront home, Emili Whitemore hadn't slept. She sat at her kitchen island in a pale blue robe, her reading glasses perched low on her nose, staring at her laptop screen. The email she had drafted to her attorney the night before was still open. Subject line, Trust Review, Urgent. Her father's name was still at the top of the attached document, Harold Bennett. Harold had been a quiet, disciplined man from Jacksonville. Navy veteran. Accountant. A man who ironed his own shirts and believed deeply in earning your keep. He adored Ethan, called him champ, but he had always warned Emily about one thing. Don't rescue him from every consequence, he used to say. You'll raise a man who thinks the world owes him. At the time, she'd rolled her eyes. Now those words echoed in her head like prophecy. Her phone buzzed. Attorney, Mark Feldman. She answered immediately. Mark. Morning, Emily, he said in his steady baritone. Got your email. I pulled the trust file. And? It's intact. Just under $280,000 now, with accrued investment growth. Her breath hitched slightly. Even she hadn't realized it had grown that much. And the conditions? She asked. Mark cleared his throat. The primary distribution clause states that funds may be released at your discretion once Ethan demonstrates sustained financial independence and responsible conduct. She closed her eyes. Define responsible. There's a subclause, Mark continued. It references absence of financial coercion, reckless debt accumulation, or manipulative conduct toward immediate family for monetary gain. Your father was specific. A humorless smile touched her lips. That sounds like him. So, Mark said carefully, why are we reviewing this now? Emily stared out the window at the canal, where a white egret stood perfectly still in the shallow water. My son sent me a bill for his wedding, she said evenly. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, Mark said finally. They've made my attendance contingent on payment. Mark exhaled slowly. That's unfortunate. I want to know my options. As trustee, you have full authority to delay distribution if you determine the conditions aren't met. And if I determine they've been violated? Then you can withhold indefinitely. She felt something steady settle in her chest. Not revenge. Not cruelty. Just balance. Mark, she said, I'd like you to prepare a formal notice. Of what? That the trust will not be released at this time due to concerns regarding financial conduct. Another pause. Are you sure? He asked gently. No, she admitted. But I'm certain. Meanwhile, 3 hours north in Tampa, Ethan Whitmore was pacing inside a modern apartment that overlooked Bayshore Boulevard. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering water. A Peloton bike stood unused in the corner. Wedding magazines were scattered across the glass coffee table. Sophia DeLuca sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through floral arrangements on her iPad. Did she say she's sending it? Sophia asked without looking up. Yeah, Ethan muttered. She said she'll send something. Sophia's lips curved. Good. He hesitated. She asked if we'd still want her there if she couldn't afford it. Sophia finally looked up. And? I didn't answer. Sophia tilted her head. Ethan, we're not villains. We just have a budget. He rubbed the back of his neck. It just feels. What? Transactional. Sophia's expression hardened slightly. My parents are putting in $50,000. I know. And your mom lives in a waterfront house in Naples. That doesn't mean. It means she can afford it. He fell silent. Sophia set the iPad down. This isn't about feelings. It's about fairness. Fairness. The word lingered between them. Back in Naples, Emily drove down Emili Trail toward her office. Palm trees lined the median. Convertible sports cars passed retirees in oversized SUVs. Florida life went on, glossy, warm, oblivious. Her real estate firm occupied a sleek glass building near downtown. Inside, air conditioning blasted against the humidity. Agents chatted about listings and open houses. Morning, Emily, one called. She smiled automatically. In her office, she closed the door and sat behind her desk. On the wall hung framed photos of Ethan over the years. Kindergarten graduation. High school football. College move-in day. She walked over and picked up the college photo. She had been so proud. So certain she'd done everything right. Her phone buzzed again. A new message in the wedding group chat. Sophia's mom, reminder that catering numbers are locked tomorrow. We'll assume non-payment equals non-attendance. Non-attendance. Just like that. A business transaction. Emily didn't respond. Instead, she opened her email. Mark had already sent a draft letter. Formal. Polished. Clinical. After review of the Bennett Family Trust, it has been determined that distribution conditions have not been satisfied due to recent financial conduct inconsistent with the Trust's stated requirements. Her father's words, translated into legal precision. Her hands trembled slightly as she read it. This wasn't about punishing Ethan. It was about teaching him something he should have learned years ago. Money is not leverage. Love is not payable upon receipt. She picked up her phone and dialed his number. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom. Did you send it?" "Straight to business." "No," she said calmly. "A beat." "What do you mean no?" "I won't be sending the $7,500. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Mom, we already told the venue." "I understand. You're putting us in a terrible position." She felt an ache in her chest, but her voice remained steady. "Ethan, did you ever wonder why Grandpa set up that trust for you?" "What trust?" She paused. "You don't remember?" He sounded confused. "Vaguely. Something from when I was a kid?" "It's grown over the years." He went quiet. "How much?" he asked slowly. "Enough." His tone shifted instantly. "Why are you bringing that up now?" "Because the trust has conditions." "What conditions?" "Financial responsibility. Independence. Integrity." "Mom, what are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," she said. "I'm informing you that the trustee has decided the conditions have not been met." The silence this time was heavier. "Wait," he said carefully. "Are you saying you're withholding money from me?" "I'm saying the trust will not be released at this time." His voice sharpened. "Over a wedding contribution?" "Over conduct." "You're punishing me." "No," she replied quietly. "I'm protecting what Grandpa intended." Sophia's voice echoed faintly in the background. "What's going on?" Ethan covered the phone but not fully. "She's threatening the trust." "Threatening." Emily closed her eyes. "I'm not threatening anything," she said calmly when he came back on. "I'm clarifying boundaries." "Mom, this is insane." "Is it?" "It's my wedding. And I'm your mother. You're choosing money over me." She almost laughed at the irony. "No, Ethan," she said softly. "You did that first." Silence. Then, colder, "If you don't support us, maybe it's better you don't come." There it was. Not even veiled now. A direct cut. Her heart cracked again, but this time, it didn't shatter. It hardened. "Then I won't," she said. He seemed stunned by her calmness. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." He hung up. That night, Emily sat alone on her back patio. The canal reflected the moonlight. Crickets hummed. A warm breeze carried the scent of jasmine from a neighbor's yard. Her phone remained silent. No apology. No reconsideration. Just distance. She wasn't naive. She knew Sophia had influence. She knew weddings magnified ego and pride. But this wasn't about flowers or catering. It was about value. About whether her presence had worth beyond a check. She picked up her phone and opened the group chat. Her thumb hovered. Then she typed, "I will not be attending. I wish you both clarity and happiness." She hit send. Almost immediately, Sophia responded. Understood. No emotion. No sadness. Just business. Emily set the phone down. She felt strangely calm. Because she knew something they didn't. The trust letter would arrive in Ethan's mailbox by certified mail within 48 hours. And when he saw the amount, and the reason it was withheld, he would realize something far more expensive than $7,500 had just slipped through his fingers. But what neither of them knew was that Sophia's father had already made a separate phone call. to a different attorney. And Emili's name had come up in a way she never expected. As thunder rolled faintly in the distance once more, Emili felt the ground shifting beneath all of them. The wedding wasn't just a celebration anymore. It was about to become a battlefield. The certified letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Florida heat shimmered above the pavement as the mail truck rolled slowly through Ethan Whitmore's gated Tampa complex. The palm trees lining the sidewalk barely moved in the still air. Across the street, joggers passed along Bayshore Boulevard, sweat darkening their athletic shirts under the punishing sun. Inside the lobby, the concierge signed for the envelope and placed it in Ethan's mailbox slot. Upstairs, Ethan was arguing. "You should have just paid it," Sophia said sharply, pacing in the kitchen. "This didn't have to escalate." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "She brought up Grandpa's trust." Sophia froze. "What trust?" He shrugged. "Something from when I was a kid. I didn't even remember it." "And?" "She said she's withholding it." Sophia's expression shifted. "How much are we talking?" "I don't know." She crossed her arms. "Well, that's convenient timing." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means maybe she's trying to manipulate you." Ethan frowned. "She wouldn't." "Wouldn't she?" Sophia shot back. "You just told me she threatened money over a wedding disagreement." He didn't respond. Because somewhere deep down, a small uncomfortable thought was forming. Had he misjudged this? A knock interrupted them. The concierge stood outside holding the envelope. "Certified mail for Mr. Whitmore." Ethan signed and closed the door. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. He tore it open. His face drained of color as he read. Sophia leaned in. "What does it say?" He swallowed hard. "It says, the trust is worth $284,000. Her eyes widened. "And?" "It says distribution is suspended due to recent conduct inconsistent with financial integrity requirements." Sophia blinked. "Conduct?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's saying I manipulated her." Sophia's voice sharpened. "This is insane." But Ethan wasn't hearing her fully. $284,000. He had no idea it was that much. Suddenly the $7,500 seemed microscopic. "She can't just do that," Sophia said. "There has to be a way around it." Ethan stared at the legal letter. There was. At the bottom. It mentioned arbitration rights and the ability to contest trustee decisions in court. Sophia's father's voice echoed in her mind. "Never let someone hold leverage over you." She picked up her phone. "I'm calling Dad." Back in Naples, Emili was walking through an open house in Pelican Bay when her phone vibrated in her purse. She ignored it at first, smiling at a retired couple admiring the granite countertops. "This kitchen was renovated last year," she said smoothly. "New Sub-Zero refrigerator, hurricane-rated windows." Her phone vibrated again. And again. Finally, she excused herself and stepped into the hallway. 3 missed calls. "Ethan." She exhaled slowly and called him back. He answered instantly. "Mom, what the hell is this?" "Good afternoon to you too." $280,000? You never told me it was that much." "It wasn't relevant." "It's my money." "It's your grandfather's money," she corrected calmly. "Held in trust." "You're abusing your authority." "Am I?" "You're punishing me for a wedding argument." "No," she said evenly. "I'm enforcing conditions your grandfather established long before this wedding existed." He was breathing hard now. "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" You're destroying my future over $7,500. She paused. Ethan, she said softly, if $7,500 was worth risking your relationship with me, what would $284,000 do? Silence. Then a colder voice entered the call. Sophia. Mrs. Whitmore, she said tightly, this feels retaliatory. Emili didn't flinch. This feels transactional, she replied. You're holding money hostage. I'm holding boundaries. Sophia scoffed. If you think this will make us beg. I don't want you to beg, Emili interrupted calmly. I want you to reflect. There was a long, charged silence. Then Ethan spoke again. We're contesting it. Her heart skipped, not from fear, but from realization. So be it, she said quietly. And she hung up. 2 days later, Emili received a formal notice. Petition to challenge trustee discretion. Filed by Ethan Whitmore. Co-signed by an attorney in Sarasota. The same attorney who represented Sophia's father's development company. So that's how this was going to go. She sat at her dining table that evening, the Florida sunset streaking orange and pink across the canal. A lawsuit. Her own son. Carla sat across from her, eyes wide. He's actually taking you to court? Apparently. For his inheritance? For control, Emili said quietly. Carla leaned back. And you? I'll respond. Are you scared? Emili stared at the water. Yes, she admitted. But not of the money. She was scared of what this meant. Of how far he was willing to go. Court in Collier County wasn't dramatic like TV. No shouting. No gasps. Just beige walls, fluorescent lights, and the hum of air conditioning battling Florida heat. Ethan avoided her eyes when they entered the courtroom. Sophia sat beside him, poised and polished in a cream suit. Sophia's father sat behind them, arms folded, expression unreadable. Emili felt the shift. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. This was about power. The judge reviewed documents calmly. Mr. Whitmore, the judge said, the trust includes specific behavioral conditions. Why do you believe the trustee has acted improperly? Ethan cleared his throat. My mother is retaliating because I asked for financial support for my wedding. The word retaliating echoed. The judge turned to Emili. Mrs. Whitmore? She stood. Her voice didn't shake. The trust specifies that funds are contingent upon financial independence and absence of coercive behavior toward immediate family for monetary gain. And you believe that occurred? Yes, Your Honor. Ethan's jaw tightened. The judge leaned back slightly. Was attendance at the wedding explicitly tied to payment? There was a pause. Sophia's attorney shifted. Ethan hesitated. Finally, yes. A ripple moved through the courtroom. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly. So your mother's presence required payment? It was a contribution, Ethan said quickly. Was it optional? Another pause. No. The judge looked unimpressed. He turned to Emili. Have you financially supported your son in adulthood? Yes. College? Yes. Vehicle? Yes. The judge nodded slowly. Then he looked at Ethan. Mr. Whitmore, this court does not view a trustee enforcing stated conditions as retaliation. Particularly when the triggering conduct appears undisputed. Sophia stiffened. Sophia's father leaned forward, jaw tight. The judge continued. Petition denied. The gavel struck lightly. Just like that. Over. But the real blow hadn't even landed yet. Because as everyone began to rise, the judge added something unexpected. One more note. The room quieted. If future evidence demonstrates continued coercive financial behavior, the trustee may consider permanent suspension. Permanent. Ethan's face went pale. Sophia gripped his hand. Emili felt something deep settle inside her. Not victory, but finality. Outside the courthouse, Florida sun blazed down mercilessly. Reporters weren't there. No one clapped. Life continued as usual. Ethan finally looked at her. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. She studied his face. The boy she once held. The man standing before her now. That depends, she said softly. Was it worth it to you? He didn't answer. Sophia pulled him toward their car. Her father didn't even glance back. Emili stood alone on the courthouse steps, heat pressing against her skin. She expected to feel relief. Instead, she felt something heavier. Because winning in court didn't mean winning her son back. And as she drove home down I-75, storm clouds gathering again over the Gulf, her phone buzzed. A private message from Sophia. She opened it at a red light. You may have won today. But weddings have a way of revealing true loyalties. Be careful what you celebrate. Emily's grip tightened on the steering wheel. What did that mean? Another threat? Or something else? That night, as lightning flashed over the canal once more, Emili sat alone on her patio. The wedding was 2 weeks away. She wasn't attending. The trust was frozen. The court battle was over. So why did it feel like this was only the beginning? Because somewhere, beneath the surface, something else was moving. And she had a feeling the real shock hadn't happened yet. The wedding day arrived wrapped in flawless Florida sunshine. Sarasota's coastline glittered like it had been polished overnight. The Gulf stretched wide and blue beneath a cloudless sky. White folding chairs lined the private beach outside the Shoreline Grand Resort, each one tied with pale champagne ribbons that fluttered gently in the breeze. A string quartet tuned their instruments beneath a floral arch bursting with imported peonies and orchids. It was the kind of wedding people posted about for months. Perfect lighting. Perfect venue. Perfect illusion. And Emili Whitemore was not there. 2 hours south in Naples, Emili stood barefoot on her back patio, watching boats drift lazily down the canal. The air was thick but still. Even the birds seemed quieter than usual. She had woken up at 6 a.m. instinctively. For 30 years, her life had revolved around Ethan's milestones. First day of school. Football championships. Graduation ceremonies. And now his wedding. Except this time, she wasn't packing a gift or choosing a dress. She was simply absent. Her phone had been silent all morning. No last-minute change of heart. No, I wish you were here. Nothing. She told herself she didn't expect it. That didn't make it hurt less. Inside her house, the television was off. She didn't want to see curated happiness. She didn't want social media reminders of what she was missing. Instead, she poured herself coffee and sat at the kitchen island, staring at the sunlight reflecting on the water. Her son was getting married. And she wasn't invited unless she paid. The truth settled heavier now. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about erasure. Meanwhile, in Sarasota, the ceremony began. Ethan stood beneath the arch in a tailored tuxedo, sweat forming slightly at his temples despite the ocean breeze. Guests fanned themselves with program cards. Champagne flutes sparkled on silver trays. Sophia walked down the aisle in a fitted lace gown, her veil trailing across white sand. The officiant smiled. "Love is partnership," he began. Ethan's eyes scanned the chairs unconsciously. Front row. Sophia's parents. Her extended family. College friends. Business associates. But one seat, third from the aisle, remained empty. It had been reserved for Emili. Even after the confrontation. Even after court. Ethan had insisted it remain. He didn't tell Sophia. He didn't tell anyone. But he couldn't bring himself to remove it. As vows were exchanged, his voice faltered only once. "I promise to honor and protect our partnership," he said, swallowing. Protect. The word tasted different now. Back in Naples, Emili was watering her hibiscus plants when a black SUV pulled slowly into her driveway. Her stomach tightened. She set the hose down. A man stepped out, dressed in a dark suit despite the heat. He wasn't a delivery driver. He wasn't familiar. He walked up to her calmly. "Mrs. Whitmore?" "Yes." He handed her a small sealed package. "No signature required." "Who is it from?" she asked. He gave a faint, neutral smile. "You'll see." Then he walked back to the SUV and drove away. Her pulse quickened. The package was heavy. Inside, carefully wrapped in velvet cloth, was a leather-bound folder. Embossed in gold. DeLuca Development Group. Sophia's family. Emili carried it inside and sat at the dining table. She opened it slowly. Inside were printed emails. Bank transfers. Contracts. And one particular document that made her breath catch. A premarital financial agreement draft. Dated 2 months ago. Between Sophia DeLuca and Ethan Whitmore. She scanned the pages. Clause after clause outlining asset division. Protection of Sophia's family wealth. And then one line near the end. The groom affirms no immediate independent inheritance assets available at time of marriage. Her chest tightened. No immediate inheritance assets. So they had known. They had assumed the trust would be accessible. And when Emili withheld it, the agreement shifted. Attached was an email from Sophia's father to his attorney. Subject: Whitmore Trust Delay. The message read: "If the mother blocks access permanently, reassess financial risk exposure. Consider wedding postponement if necessary." Emili leaned back slowly. Wedding postponement. Risk exposure. This wasn't about love. This was about calculation. And suddenly, Sophia's message from days ago echoed differently. "Be careful what you celebrate." Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped to the final page. A more recent addendum. Dated 3 days ago. Given uncertainty of anticipated inheritance, asset integration timeline adjusted. Re-evaluation recommended within 12 months. Re-evaluation. Of what? Of the marriage? A chill ran through her despite the Florida heat. They had been planning around the trust money. Budgeting around it. Positioning themselves. And when it disappeared, the math changed. Her son wasn't just entitled. He might be disposable. At the reception in Sarasota, the champagne flowed freely. Guests laughed. The band played classic American wedding hits. Sophia's father stood to give a toast. To strategic partnerships, he began, smiling broadly. "May this union be prosperous in every sense." Some guests chuckled politely. Ethan forced a smile. Prosperous. Every sense. He glanced again at the empty chair that had been moved to the back during dinner. It looked out of place now. Like a reminder no one wanted. Sophia leaned toward him. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said quickly. But he wasn't. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, something had started to itch. A question he hadn't allowed himself to ask. Would Sophia have married him if the trust didn't exist? He pushed the thought away. Tonight wasn't the time. In Naples, Emily sat alone at her dining table long after sunset. The canal reflected soft moonlight. She reread the documents carefully. Someone inside the De Luca circle had sent this. Quietly. Anonymously. Why? A warning? A conscience? Or leverage? She picked up her phone and dialed Mark. He answered groggily. It's 10 p.m., Emily. I know. I'm sorry. What happened? She explained. There was a long pause. Where did you get this? Delivered. No return address. Mark exhaled slowly. If this is authentic, it suggests financial motivation behind the marriage. And it changes everything. How? Because if your son entered this marriage under financial misrepresentation assumptions, there could be legal consequences. Her heart pounded. You're saying? I'm saying, Mark continued carefully, if they anticipated access to trust funds as part of long-term planning and that access is permanently denied, strain is inevitable. Emily stared at the papers. Strain. Or collapse. She felt something unexpected rise in her chest. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Fear. Because if this marriage had been partially built on money that no longer existed, what would happen when reality set in? Her phone buzzed suddenly. A text. From Ethan. We're married. 2 words. No emoji. No warmth. Just fact. Her throat tightened. She typed back slowly. I hope you chose love. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No reply. Emily looked at the documents one more time. If she sent them to Ethan, she would detonate his wedding night. If she stayed silent, she risked watching him walk blindly into something calculated. The clock ticked softly in the kitchen. The air felt heavy. Across the state, fireworks exploded over Sarasota's beach in celebration. In Naples, Emily made a decision. She placed the folder back into its velvet wrap, locked it in her desk drawer, and whispered to herself, not tonight. But deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Because marriages built on expectation don't crack loudly. They fracture quietly. And when they finally split, they shatter everything around them. As midnight passed and the Florida coast fell silent, Emily stared out at the dark canal water. Somewhere north, her son was beginning his new life. And somewhere between love and leverage, a truth was waiting to surface. One that would make the wedding bill look small. Very small. 3 months after the wedding, the first crack appeared. Not loudly. Not publicly. But quietly, the way real fractures begin. Naples was transitioning into early fall, though Florida didn't cool so much as slightly exhale. The humidity softened. The sunset stretched longer across the canals. Retirees returned from summer escapes up north. Restaurants filled again with linen shirts and boat shoes. Emili Whitemore was hosting an open house when her phone buzzed in her blazer pocket. She didn't look at it until the buyers left. 1 missed call. Ethan. Her pulse quickened. He hadn't called in weeks. Only short, neutral texts. Hope you're well. Work is busy. No warmth. No updates. She stepped into the empty living room overlooking the water and called him back. He answered on the first ring. His voice was different. Thinner. Mom. Something inside her tightened instantly. What's wrong? Silence. Then she left. The words didn't process at first. Left, where? She moved back to her parents' place. In Sarasota. Emily sat slowly on the edge of the windowsill. When? 2 days ago. Her voice stayed steady. Why? A long pause. Money. The word landed like an echo from months ago. What happened? She asked gently. He exhaled shakily. Her dad's company took a hit. Some development deal collapsed. They needed liquidity. And? They assumed I'd have access to the trust by now. Emily closed her eyes. Assumed. When I told them it wasn't happening, his voice cracked slightly. Everything changed. She didn't say I warned you. She didn't say I knew it. She waited. She said I misrepresented my financial position, he continued. That she made long-term decisions based on expected assets. Emily felt the weight of the velvet folder still locked in her desk drawer. The prenup. The emails. The calculations. Did you know? She asked quietly. He hesitated. I knew her family expected stability. That's not what I asked. Silence. Then, softly. I thought it would work itself out. Work itself out. Like it always had. With Mom's help. Are you divorcing? She asked. Probably. No anger in his voice. Just exhaustion. For the first time in months, he sounded young again. Mom, was I blind? Her heart broke, but not in the same way as before. This time, it wasn't betrayal. It was clarity. Yes, she said gently. He didn't argue. 2 weeks later, Ethan showed up at her Naples home unannounced. He looked thinner. Less polished. The expensive watch Sophia had gifted him was gone. He stood awkwardly at the door, hands in his pockets. Hi. Emily opened the door wider. Come in. They stood facing each other in the living room for a moment that felt like it stretched years. I'm sorry, he said. 2 words she had waited months to hear. For the wedding? She asked softly. For everything. She studied his face. There was no defensiveness now. No pride. Just humility. I thought, if I built the right life, with the right image, everything would fall into place, he said quietly. I thought money was proof I'd made it. And now? He swallowed. Now I realize I traded respect for appearance. The words were heavy. Honest. She walked to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of iced tea, sliding one toward him like she used to after his Little League games. Why did you really contest the trust? She asked calmly. He stared at the glass. Because I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed? Her family kept talking about investments, portfolios, generational wealth. And I kept thinking, I don't measure up. Her chest tightened. You measure up by who you are, she said quietly. Not what you inherit. I know that now. He looked at her. I'm not asking for the trust anymore. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stood and walked to her office. Unlocked the desk drawer. And carried the velvet folder back to the kitchen table. She placed it in front of him. What's this? Something you need to see. He opened it slowly. As he read the prenup draft. The email from Sophia's father. The line about inheritance reassessment. His face drained of color. His voice faltered. They were planning around it. Yes. His hands trembled slightly. She knew. Yes. The silence between them felt different now. Not sharp. Not hostile. Just real. "I married into a business strategy," he whispered. "You married someone who valued leverage," Emili corrected gently. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "I pushed away the only person who wasn't calculating me." Tears filled his eyes. And for the first time since he was a boy, he didn't hide them. "I'm sorry, Mom." She walked around the table and pulled him into her arms. He held her tightly, not like a man asserting independence, but like a son who had finally understood something. A month later, the divorce filing was official. No dramatic headlines. No social media spectacle. Just paperwork. Sophia moved on quickly. Her father's company restructured. The wedding photos remained online, smiling proof of something that never truly existed. Ethan took a smaller apartment. Got a second job consulting independently. Stopped trying to perform wealth. Started building something real. He called his mother weekly. Sometimes just to talk. Sometimes to ask advice. But never to ask for money. 6 months after the wedding, Emili invited him over for dinner again. The canal shimmered under sunset light. The air smelled faintly of salt and grilled lemon. They ate on the patio. He looked healthier now. Grounded. "Mom," he said carefully, "about Grandpa's trust." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm not asking for it," he clarified quickly. "I just want to know what I need to do." She smiled softly. "Be consistent." "With what?" "Integrity." He nodded. "I've started paying off my debts. No shortcuts. No expectations." She studied him for a long moment. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Don't rescue him from every consequence. So she didn't. Instead, she stood. Walked inside. And returned with a single envelope. Not thick. Not heavy. Just simple. She handed it to him. He opened it carefully. Inside was a notarized document. Amendment to trust terms. He looked up, confused. "I've added a clause," she said calmly. He scanned the page. Full distribution available upon completion of 5 consecutive years of independent financial stability, verified by neutral audit. Trustee relinquishes control upon fulfillment. His eyes widened. "You're giving it back?" "I'm giving you a path." He stared at the document. No anger. No leverage. Just conditions tied to character. Tears filled his eyes again. "I don't deserve you." She smiled gently. "That's not how this works." He stood and hugged her tightly. And this time, there was no transaction between them. No bill. No expectation. Just love, earned, not bought. Later that night, after he left, Emili sat alone on her patio. The canal water reflected moonlight softly. The storm season had passed. The air was calm. She thought back to the envelope that started it all. The $7,500 bill. It had felt like betrayal. But now she saw it differently. It was a mirror. It revealed who her son was becoming. And it forced her to stop protecting him from lessons he needed to learn. Sometimes love isn't giving. Sometimes love is withholding. Not to punish, but to protect. And as she watched a boat drift quietly down the canal, Emili Whitemore finally felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace.